The Alpha's runaway bride. I faked my death to escape him, but he found me pregnant. Part 1. Chapter 1. The wedding dress weighed more than my entire future. I stood in front of the mirror in the pack's bridal chamber, watching the girl I'd been disappear layer by layer. White silk, white lace, white pearls woven through hair that had been brushed for 3 hours by servants who wouldn't meet my eyes. Aurora. That was my name. Aurora Dawn, daughter of the Pax Gamma, promised to Alpha Kael Blackwood since before I could walk. The alliance would unite our territories, strengthen our bloodlines, secure peace for generations. No one asked what I wanted. Beautiful, my mother whispered, adjusting a pearl near my ear. Her hand shook. She knew. She'd always known. The moon herself will weep with envy. I met her eyes in the mirror. I'm 18. I don't love him. I've never even spoken to him alone. Love comes after, she said, the lie smooth as silk. Respect first. Duty. Then love in time. I've heard he killed his first wife. Silence. The servants froze. My mother's face went pale, then carefully blank. Accident, she whispered. Childbirth. Not his fault. 3 women before her. All accidents. All dead within a year of mating. I turned from the mirror, the dress rustling like falling leaves. Mother, I'm going to die. She slapped me. Quick, sharp, the sound cracking through the room like breaking ice. Don't, she hissed. Don't speak it. Don't think it. The contract is signed. The packs are gathered. If you run, they kill your brother. Your father. Everyone you love. This is the price, Aurora. This is what we pay for safety. I touched my burning cheek and felt something crack inside. Not my spirit. Something harder. Colder. The part of me that still believed in rescue, in fairness, and happy endings. Help me with the veil, I said. She did, weeping silently. The servants pinned it in place, hiding my face. Hiding my expression. Hiding the decision I just made. If I was going to die, I'd die on my terms. Not his. The hours before the ceremony passed in a blur of preparation and pretense. While the servants flitted about, adjusting my train and refreshing my perfume, I mentally reviewed every detail of my escape plan. It had taken me 6 months to prepare. 6 months of secret runs through the forest, of hiding supplies in hollow trees, of memorizing the river's currents and moods. I thought of my brother Elias. He was 15, all awkward limbs and fierce loyalty. He tried to fight for me once, when the betrothal was announced, and my father had beaten him so severely he'd limped for a week. Now he stood in the front row tonight, a decorative dagger at his hip that couldn't protect him from anything, least of all the enforcer who stood 3 feet behind him with a blade concealed in his sleeve. I thought of my father, who had sold me as casually as he'd sell a horse, who looked at me now with something that might have been shame but was probably just fear of losing the alliance. And I thought of my mother, who wept even as she pinned the final pearl, who knew and had always known but had never found the courage to defy. The bridal chamber smelled of jasmine and fear. Through the open window, I could hear the pack gathering in the great clearing. 400 wolves, their voices rising and falling like the tide. They were celebrating. For them, this was a triumph. The Butcher of Blackwood, finally tamed by marriage, bound to our pack through my willing, or unwilling sacrifice. 1 hour. The head servant announced, bowing low. The Alpha has arrived. My stomach twisted. I'd seen Kael Blackwood before, of course. Everyone had. He visited our pack twice yearly to discuss borders and trade, and each time the atmosphere grew thick with terror. He was beautiful, yes, tall and dark and carved from the same stone as the mountains, but he moved like violence given form. Even when he smiled, his golden eyes remained cold, assessing, hungry. The servants filed out, leaving me alone with my mother for one final moment. She gripped my hands, her rings digging into my skin. Aurora, she whispered urgently. If you can find a way to please him, to be what he wants, perhaps I won't die like the others? I pulled my hands free. Mother, I love you, but I won't spend my life trying to survive a monster. I'd rather die free. Don't say that. Tears streamed down her face, ruining her careful makeup. You're my daughter. My firstborn. I carried you, I nursed you, you gave me away. The words were gentle, not accusatory. Simply true. And I forgive you. But I won't follow you. I turned back to the mirror, checking my reflection one last time. The veil hid everything, my fear, my determination, the wild hope that had taken root in my chest the moment I decided to run. From this angle I looked like every other bride in pack history. Nervous, hopeful, beautiful. But I wasn't every other bride. I was Aurora Dawn, who had mapped the caves beneath Silver Rush, who could hold her breath for 3 minutes, who had hidden a set of boys' clothes in a waterproof bundle 6 months ago and checked on them every week since. The drums began, deep, resonant, calling me to my fate. Time, my mother said, voice breaking. I took her arm, steadying her more than she steadied me, and together we walked toward the door. The journey from the bridal chamber to the clearing took forever and no time at all. We moved through corridors lined with pack members, their faces blurring into a sea of expectation. Some looked sympathetic. Most looked relieved it wasn't them. A few of the younger girls watched me with something like envy, still believing in the fairy tale of the handsome alpha and the romantic alliance. If only they knew. The night air hit my face, cool and pine-scented. Torches lined the path, their flames dancing in the breeze. Above, the moon rose nearly full, heavy and watchful. In 3 days it would be completely full, and every wolf in the territory would shift, run, hunt. I planned to be far away by then. Far away or dead. The ceremony was held at moonrise. 400 wolves gathered in the great clearing, their eyes glowing in the dark. Torches burned. Drums beat a rhythm that felt like a heartbeat. Slow, inevitable, marching toward something final. I walked down the aisle on my father's arm. He was trembling. He knew too then. All the adults knew. Only the children still believed in fairy tales. Alpha Kael waited at the altar. He was beautiful in the way of storms and avalanches. Dark hair, golden eyes, a body built for violence. 30 years old, ruler since 20, widower 3 times over. He smiled as I approached, and I saw the emptiness behind it. The hunger. The thing that consumed wives and called it accident. "Welcome, Aurora," he said, taking my hand. His skin was cold. "I've waited long for this." The words were wrong. The tone was wrong. Everything was wrong, and 400 wolves watched. And my brother stood in the front row with a knife at his back that only I could see. I reached the altar, turned to face him. The binding words began. Ancient, powerful, tying our souls together in ways that couldn't be undone. Unless one soul died. I made my choice. "Forgive me," I whispered, not to him. To my family. To the life I was destroying. Then I ran. Not back down the aisle. Forward, past the shocked alpha. Past the altar, into the forest that bordered the clearing. I knew these woods. I'd played in them as a child, hidden in them as a teenager, planned in them as a woman who refused to die. "Aurora!" Kael's roar shook the trees. "Stop!" I didn't stop. I ran faster, the wedding dress tearing on branches, the pearls scattering like tears. Behind me, shouting pursuit, the heavy feet of warriors who knew these woods less well than I did. The river. That was my goal. The silver rush, cold and fast and dangerous, with cliffs on both sides and caves beneath the waterline that I'd discovered by accident at 12. I reached the edge. Looked back once. Saw Kael leading the chase, his golden eyes burning with something that wasn't fear or concern. It was excitement. He liked this. The hunt. The chase. The certainty of capture. I smiled at him. Let him see it. Then I jumped. The water was freezing, the current immediate and violent. I let it carry me, let the dress drag me down. Let the world above become distant noise and fading light. Then I found the cave. The air pocket. The darkness where I could breathe and wait and hope they'd believe. The search lasted 3 days. I know because I counted, shivering in that cave, eating nothing, drinking only the water that dripped from stone. On the 3rd day they found my dress. Washed up downstream. Torn and empty. They declared me dead. Drowned. Another tragedy, another lost bride. But at least the alliance could be renegotiated with my younger sister. I waited 1 more day. Then I emerged, wearing clothes I'd hidden years before. And walked into a new life. Chapter 2. 3 years. That's how long I stayed hidden. I called myself Rowan now. Cut my hair short. Dyed it black with walnut hulls. Learned to walk differently. Speak differently. Be someone else entirely. I found work in a fishing village far from any pack territory. A place where wolves lived among humans, hiding their nature, surviving through anonymity. The work was hard. Cleaning fish, mending nets, hauling crates until my hands bled and calloused. But it was honest. No one owned me. No one planned my death. I was free, even if freedom smelled like salt and scales and endless exhaustion. I made friends. Mara, the tavern keeper's daughter, loud and kind and completely unaware that her quiet friend could shift into a wolf. Tomas, the old fisherman who taught me to navigate by stars and never asked why I flinched at loud noises. Little Sophie, a human child who followed me like a duckling and called me Auntie Ro. I built a life. Small, limited, but mine. The first year was the hardest. I woke every morning expecting to see Kael's golden eyes staring back at me from the shadows. Every stranger was a potential hunter. Every unexpected knock sent me scrambling for the knife I kept beneath my pillow. I learned to sleep in shifts, never more than 4 hours at a stretch, and developed the habit of mapping every room for exits upon entry. The village was called Saltmere, a collection of weathered buildings clinging to the rocky coastline like barnacles. It had no alpha, no pack structure, no laws beyond those enforced by the human constable who visited twice monthly. For wolves like me, refugees, runaways, the broken and the hiding, it offered the only thing that mattered: invisibility. I found my cottage through luck and desperation. An old woman had died, alone and unmourned, and her nephew, eager to be rid of the property, sold it to me for a handful of coins I'd stolen from my father's strongbox before the wedding. It was tiny, one room with a sleeping loft, but it had a stone foundation and a stout door and windows that faced the sea. The sea. I'd never seen it before Saltmere. The first time I stood on the cliffs and watched the horizon dissolve into gray infinity, I wept for an hour. Not from sadness but from wonder. There was so much world beyond the pact territories, so much existence that had nothing to do with alphas and alliances and arranged marriages. I could have spent my whole life in that one valley, never knowing what waited beyond the mountains. I chose my new name carefully. Rowan, the tree of protection, of vision, of balance between worlds. It felt right in my mouth, solid and real. Nothing like the airy romance of Aurora. Aurora had been a princess in a tower, waiting to be sacrificed. Rowan was a survivor building something from nothing. Mara found me first. She was 22 with red cheeks and a laugh that could fill a room, and she decided we would be friends before I had any say in the matter. She worked in her father's tavern, the Driftwood, serving ale to fishermen and travelers, and she noticed me because I was the only person in Saltmere who didn't return her smiles. "You're either running from something or searching for something," she announced one evening, sliding onto the bench across from me. I'd been nursing the same tankard for 2 hours, watching the door. "Either way, you look miserable." "I'm Mara. You're going to tell me your name and then you're going to let me buy you a proper meal. You look like a strong wind could blow you over." I should have refused. Every instinct screamed at me to maintain distance, to stay invisible, to trust no one. But she had kind eyes and I was so lonely I ached with it. "Rowan," I said. "And I'm not. I'm not good company. Nobody's good company in the Driftwood. That's why they come here, to be bad company together." She waved at her father, a massive man with a beard like a seabird's nest, and 2 plates of fish stew appeared as if by magic. "Eat. Then you can tell me as much or as little as you want. But I warn you, I'm persistent. I'll wear you down eventually." She did wear me down, though it took months. Bit by bit, I let her in. I told her I was from the interior, that my family had died in a fire, that I was trying to start fresh where no one knew my name. The lies came easily. I'd practiced them until they felt like truth, and she accepted them with the easy generosity of someone who'd never had reason to doubt. What I couldn't tell her, what I could never tell anyone, was the wolf inside me. In Saltmere, shifting was dangerous. The humans didn't know about us, not really, and the other wolves who lived there kept their nature hidden behind careful routines and locked doors. I learned to suppress the urge, to push down the wildness that rose with the full moon, to run in my human form until my legs gave out rather than surrender to the beast. It was agony. It was necessary. Tomas came next. He was 70 if he was a day, with skin like old leather and eyes the color of faded denim. He found me struggling with a net on my 3rd day of work at the docks. I'd lied about having experience, desperate for the coin, and instead of reporting me, he spent 3 hours teaching me the proper knots. "You've got clever hands," he observed, watching me retry the pattern for the 10th time. "But no patience. You want to be good immediately, and that's not how fishing works. Or life, for that matter." "I don't have time to be bad," I said, surprising myself with the honesty. "Time's all you've got, girl. Trust me." He settled onto a barrel, producing a pipe from somewhere in his layers of clothing. "Now show me again. And this time don't fight the rope. Work with it." Tomas became my mentor, my grandfather's substitute, my teacher of everything practical. He showed me how to read the weather in the clouds, how to mend sailcloth, how to gut a fish so efficiently you barely stained your apron. He never asked about my past, though I sometimes caught him studying me with knowing eyes. He simply accepted me, gruff and kind in equal measure, and gave me the skills to survive. Little Sophie was the last piece, the one I hadn't expected and couldn't have prepared for. She was 6 years old, the daughter of a widow who worked the night shift at the cannery, and she had the habit of wandering the village while her mother slept. I found her one morning, asleep in my doorway, and instead of shooing her away, I made her breakfast. After that, she was mine. Or I was hers. She called me Auntie Ro, and brought me shells and drew me pictures and told me stories about her dreams. She was human, completely and utterly, with no wolf blood in her veins, and she represented everything I was trying to build. A life defined by choice rather than instinct, by love rather than obligation. And then I met Silas. He was a drifter passing through on his way to somewhere else. A wolf I knew immediately, but alone like me. No pack scent, no territorial markers, just the faint smell of forest and distance. He sat in Mara's tavern one night watching me work, and I felt the attention like warmth on skin that had been cold too long. "You move like prey," he said when I brought his ale. "But you smell like predator. Interesting combination." "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." He smiled and it was gentle, unthreatening. "I'm not hunting you, Rowan. Whatever you're running from, I'm not it. Everyone's running from something." "True." He touched his chest, where I noticed a scar peeking above his collar. I'm running from a pack that wanted me to be alpha, wanted me to lead, conquer, expand. I wanted to fish, to travel, to meet interesting women who smell like secrets. I should have walked away, should have kept my distance, maintained my anonymity, protected my fragile freedom. Instead, I sat down. We talked until dawn. He told me about the road, the places he'd seen, the freedom of belonging nowhere. I told him about the village, the nets, the stars Tomas had taught me. I didn't tell him about white dresses, golden eyes, caves where I'd waited to die. He stayed. 1 week, then 2. Helped with the boats, made Mara laugh, taught Sophie to carve wooden animals. He was kind in ways I'd forgotten existed. Gentle. Patient. When he kissed me, it was my choice. My yes given freely, received with gratitude. The courtship that followed was nothing like the whirlwind of my engagement to Kael. There were no contracts, no ceremonies, no hundreds of witnesses waiting to bind us together. Instead, there were walks along the beach at sunset, shared meals in my tiny cottage, conversations that stretched deep into the night. Silas taught me what it meant to be touched with reverence rather than possession. His hands were callous from work, strong enough to haul nets and wrestle sails, but when they found my skin, they moved with devastating gentleness. He never assumed, never demanded, never treated my body as territory to be claimed. "Tell me what you want," he would whisper, his breath warm against my neck. "Tell me what you need. I don't want to guess. I want to know." And I would tell him, haltingly at first, then with growing confidence, that I liked my hair stroked but not pulled, that certain touches made me flinch, memories I couldn't control, and he should never take it personally, that I needed to face the door when we slept, that I woke sometimes gasping from nightmares I wouldn't describe. He listened. He remembered. He adjusted. In return, I learned his secrets too. The scar on his chest came from his brother's claws, a challenge fight he'd refused to finish. He'd let his brother win, let him take the alpha mantle, and been exiled for his weakness. He didn't regret it. He'd seen what power did to people, how it curdled kindness into control, and he'd chosen to walk away rather than become what he hated. "I could have been him," Silas told me one night, as we watched the stars emerge over the water. "I had the same training, the same expectations. The difference was I had one teacher, a beta named Corvin, who showed me another way. He taught me that strength without mercy is just brutality, that real power is the ability to protect without destroying." "Is that why you stayed?" I asked. "In Saltmere?" "Because I needed protection." He was quiet for a moment, considering. "I stayed because you looked at me like I was a person, not a means to an end. Because when I smiled, you didn't automatically smile back. You assessed, you decided, you chose to respond. That's rare, Rowan. Most people are so desperate for connection, they'll take whatever's offered. You know your own worth. It's intoxicating." I didn't know my own worth. Not really. I was still learning, still healing from the damage of being treated as currency, as alliance fodder, as disposable. But I was learning, and Silas was patient enough to teach without demanding progress. 3 months later, I missed my moonblood. I told him in the boat, where no one could hear, where the water would carry away anything too heavy to hold. He was silent for a long time, staring at the horizon. Then, "What do you want to do?" "I don't know. I never thought I'd have this. A child. A choice." "It's your choice, Rowan. Always. I'll stay or go, help or leave, whatever you need. But I won't decide for you." I looked at him, really looked, and saw what I'd been too afraid to name. Love. Real love, built slowly, chosen daily. Nothing like the possession I'd escaped. "I want to keep it," I said. "I want to try." He took my hand. "Then we try. Together." The pregnancy changed everything and nothing. Silas moved into my cottage officially, and we became a family in truth as well as intention. Mara threw us a celebration, embarrassing and wonderful. Tomas carved a cradle from driftwood, his gnarled hands surprisingly delicate on the intricate patterns. Sophie drew pictures of what she thought the baby would look like, mostly stick figures with enormous smiles. And I began to hope, really hope, in a way I hadn't allowed myself since before the wedding. I imagined a daughter with Silas's kindness, or a son with his steady patience. I imagined teaching them to navigate by stars, to respect the sea, to choose their own path. I imagined a future unwritten by pack law or alpha command, shaped only by love and intention. 6 months later, Silas was dead. It wasn't an accident, though it looked like one. A storm, a boat overturned, a body washed up 3 days later. The villagers mourned. Mara cried. I stood at the funeral, my belly rounding with life, and felt the world end again. But I was stronger now. Harder. I'd survived Kael, survived the river, survived becoming someone new. I would survive this too. I would raise this child alone. Give them everything I hadn't had: choice, safety, love without possession. I would be enough. I didn't know that Kael had never stopped looking. That my death had never convinced him. That he'd spent 3 years and countless resources tracking the ghost of the bride who'd escaped. I didn't know he was watching the funeral from the cliff above. Golden eyes fixed on my pregnant belly. Understanding finally dawning. I was alive. I was his. And I carried another man's child. The hunt was over. The real game was about to begin. Chapter 3. He came at midnight. I was in the cottage Silas and I had shared, packing for a move I hadn't told anyone about. Something had been wrong for weeks. Wolves in the forest where none should be, strangers asking questions in nearby towns, the prickling sense of being watched. I knew somehow. Knew before I saw him. Kael stepped through the door like he owned it. Like he owned me. 3 years had barely touched him. Same dark hair, same golden eyes, same terrible beauty. He wore traveling clothes, simple and expensive, and the casual confidence of a man who'd never been denied. "Hello, Aurora," he said. "Or do you prefer Rowan now?" I stood between him and the bedroom door, where my escape pack waited, where the knife I kept sharp sat within reach. "How did you find me? You were never lost. Only paused." He moved closer, and I smelled the forest on him, the road, the relentless patience of 3 years. "I knew you survived the river. Knew you were too clever to drown. So I waited. Watched. Let you build something to lose." "Why? Why not take me then?" "Because you needed to understand." He stopped an arm's length away, close enough to touch, close enough to kill. "Needed to feel safety, hope, love so you could appreciate having it taken. So you could understand what running cost. My freedom cost you pride. Nothing more. My pride is everything." His eyes dropped to my belly and something flickered, calculation, not anger. "And now you've given me leverage I didn't expect. A child. Another man's child growing in my bride's womb. Not your bride. You never completed the ceremony. I'm nothing to you. You're everything to me, Aurora." The words were soft, almost tender, and more terrifying than any shout. The one who escaped. The one who made me feel uncertainty. "For 3 years I've wondered what you saw. What you knew that the others didn't. How you recognized what I am." "Monster," I said. "I saw a monster." "Yes." He smiled. "And still you ran toward death rather than accept me. That fascinated me. Obsessed me. I need to understand why." "So you killed Silas." The smile didn't waver. The storm was real. The drowning. Assisted. A nudge, nothing more. I needed you vulnerable, Aurora. Needed you to feel lost before I offered replacement. I lunged for the knife. He caught my wrist, effortless, and pulled me close. His body was hard against mine, unyielding, and his breath was warm on my ear. "Come quietly and the child lives. Fight me and I take you both and the child becomes mine in truth. Raised as my heir, never knowing your name." He released my wrist, let me stumble back. "Choose, Aurora. As you chose once before. Death or compliance. Freedom or survival. The same choice, wearing different clothes." I looked at him, really looked, and saw what I hadn't at 18. The emptiness wasn't cruelty. It was loneliness. Profound, consuming, the isolation of someone who'd never been refused, never been challenged, never been forced to become human. He didn't want to kill me. He wanted to understand me. Wanted perhaps to become something else through my eyes. It was a weakness. Small, hidden, but real. "I'll come," I said. But not quietly. Not compliantly. "I am not yours, Kael. I am mine. The child is mine. You may take my body, but you will never possess what makes me, me." He studied me, head tilted, predator assessing prey that had learned to bite back. "Interesting," he murmured. "The others feared me. Beg. You challenge. Even now, pregnant, alone, you challenge. Is that why they died? Because they bored you?" Something flickered. Confirmation quickly hidden. "Come," he said, offering his hand. "Show me what else you've learned." I didn't take his hand, but I walked with him out of the cottage into the dark, toward the carriage that would carry me back to the life I drowned to escape. The journey took 2 weeks. Kael didn't touch me except to help me in and out of carriages, up and down stairs. He watched me constantly, golden eyes cataloging everything, what I ate, how I slept, the way I talked to my belly when I thought no one listened. "You're attached," he observed on the 10th day. "To the child. Despite its father being gone. Because of its father being gone. This child is all I have left of love freely given." "Love." He said the word like a foreign concept. "You believe you loved him? The drifter? The nobody?" "I believe he loved me. That he saw me, really saw me, and wanted what was best for me, not what was useful to him. That's love, Kael. Something you may never understand." He was silent for a long moment. Then, "Teach me." "What?" "Teach me to understand." "You have what?" "For months until the child arrives. For months to make me comprehend what I lack. In exchange I offer safety, protection, a place in my pack, not as prisoner but as teacher. And if I refuse, then you become prisoner. The child becomes pawn. And we both lose the only opportunity we have." He met my eyes and I saw desperation beneath the control. I don't want to break you, Aurora. I want to learn from you. Help me. It was manipulation. I knew it was manipulation, but it was also opportunity. A crack in the armor I'd never seen before. For conditions, I said. 1. The child is mine. Always. You claim no ownership, legal or social. 2. I have freedom within your territory. Not prisoner, not pet, able to come and go as I choose. 3. You never touch me without invitation. Never. For when I've taught you what I can, you let me go. Truly go with the child to build whatever life we choose. And if you fail to teach me, if I remain what I am, then we both know I tried. And you acknowledge that some things cannot be forced. He considered. Longer than I'd expected. Genuine deliberation in those golden eyes. Agreed, he said finally. With one addition. If you succeed, if I learn to love as you describe, then you stay. Not as prisoner. As partner. The choice I was denied, offered freely. That's not addition. That's contradiction. No. It's hope. He looked away, out the carriage window at passing forests. Something else you might teach me. The rest of the journey passed in tense silence, broken only by the necessities of travel. We stopped at inns along the way, always taking separate rooms, always with Kael's guards positioned where I couldn't escape unnoticed. I spent the hours staring out at the changing landscape, watching the coastal plains give way to rolling hills, then to dense forest, then finally to the mountains that marked Blackwood territory. I thought of Silas constantly, of his hands, his voice, his patience. I thought of the future we'd planned, now Ash, and I let the grief fuel my determination. Kael had taken him from me, but he wouldn't take my child. He wouldn't take my spirit. He would learn or he wouldn't, but either way I would survive. On the 12th day we passed through a village I recognized. 3 years ago, I'd hidden here for a night, exhausted and terrified, before continuing my journey to Saltmere. The innkeeper who'd fed me still worked the counter. She looked at our fine carriage with envy, not recognition. I was Rowan now, not Aurora. I had built that protection carefully and it held. But it wouldn't hold forever. Not against Kael's resources, his determination, his obsession. The only path forward was through, not around. I had to teach him, change him, or find another way to escape. The mountains grew steeper, the roads narrower. We left the carriage at a staging post and continued on horseback, me riding pillion behind Kael because my condition made solo riding dangerous. His back was warm against my chest, his scent, pine and musk and something uniquely him, filling my lungs with every breath. I hated that I noticed. Hated that my body remembered on some cellular level that this was the mate chosen for me, the wolf I was biologically programmed to desire. The mate bond, incomplete but present, thrummed between us like a plucked string. I ignored it. I had to. On the 14th day we saw Thornhaven for the first time. Chapter 4. Kael's fortress was called Thornhaven. I'd never seen it, my wedding had been at my father's pack, my escape immediate. Now I walked its halls as something unprecedented. A guest with conditions, a prisoner with privileges, a teacher with a deadly curriculum. The fortress was beautiful in a stark way. Stone and wood, ancient tapestries depicting hunts and battles, windows positioned to catch every hour of light. It felt lived in, personal, not the cold dungeon I'd imagined. Your rooms, Kael said, opening a door. Adjacent to mine but separate. The connecting door locks from your side only. I entered. A bedroom, sitting room, private bath, luxurious but not ostentatious. Most importantly, a door to the hallway, unlocked, unguarded. You trust me not to run? I trust you to honor our agreement. You asked for freedom within my territory. This is yours. He hesitated, unusual uncertainty in his posture. Dinner is at 7. You may join me or eat here. Your choice. Always my choice. Always. That is the lesson, yes? That choice matters. I turned to face him. Why the others died, Kael? The wives before me. Was it because they had no choice? Because they were given to you and you knew it and that knowledge made them less? The mask slipped. Just for a moment I saw shame. Grief. Something broken beneath the monster. They were afraid, he said quietly. Always afraid. Of my reputation, my power, my expectations. They tried to be perfect and their trying made them brittle. I broke them without meaning to. Without knowing how to stop. And when they broke, I discarded them. Found another. Hoped differently, though I never changed. He met my eyes. You are the first who did not break. Who ran rather than shatter. I need to understand why. Then the first lesson is this. I am not your wife. Not your property. Not your project. I am Aurora, who chooses to be here, who chooses to teach you, who can choose to leave at any time. That choice, that power is what makes me strong. Take it away, and you destroy what you claim to want. He nodded slowly as if memorizing. Choice. Yes. What else? Come to dinner. I'll tell you. The dining hall was smaller than I'd expected, intimate rather than imposing. A table set for two, candles rather than torches, windows open to the mountain air. Kael had changed into simpler clothes, a dark tunic, trousers, nothing that marked him as alpha, and he stood when I entered, a gesture of courtesy that seemed almost awkward on him. You came, he said as if surprised. I agreed to teach you. That requires presence. I took the seat he indicated, noting that it positioned me closest to the door. He was learning or trying to. But I have conditions for these lessons as well. Name them. Honesty. Complete and absolute. If I ask why you did something, you tell me the truth, not what you think I want to hear. If you don't know something, you say so. If you're angry or frustrated or confused, you express it rather than suppress it. Emotions are weakness. Emotions are information. They tell you what matters, what threatens, what you value. Suppressing them doesn't make you strong. It makes you blind. I accepted the wine he poured, noting that it was non-alcoholic, suitable for pregnancy. Another small consideration. The second condition is patience. I spent 18 years learning to be Aurora, 3 years learning to be Rowan. You won't become someone new overnight, or in 4 months. The goal isn't transformation. It's understanding. Growth. And the third. Respect for my boundaries. Physical, emotional, temporal. If I need space, you give it. If I need silence, you accept it. If I need to spend a day doing nothing but reading or walking or crying, you don't demand productivity. He was quiet for a moment, turning his own glass in his hands. These conditions, they apply to you as well? They apply to anyone who wants genuine connection. Yes. Then I have conditions too. He met my eyes and I saw the alpha beneath the student. The power that had built and held this territory for a decade. You give this a true chance. Not performance, not manipulation. Not planning your next escape while pretending to engage. If you're here, be here. If you're teaching, teach. The moment I sense you're playing me, our agreement ends, and the consequences return. It was fair. More than fair, given what he could simply take. Agreed. We ate. The food was excellent. Venison, roasted vegetables, fresh bread, the kind of meal that spoke of resources and skilled staff. I ate more than I expected, my body demanding fuel for the child growing within me. And I caught Kael watching with something like satisfaction. You were hungry. I've been eating for 2. And stress suppresses appetite. I'm less stressed than I expected. Because you have power here. Agency. That's the lesson, isn't it? That powerlessness creates fear. And fear creates brittleness. I paused, fork halfway to my mouth. Yes. Exactly that. The lessons unfolded over weeks. I taught him about Silas, how he'd waited for my yes, how he'd accepted my no without anger, how he'd made me feel safe enough to want. Kael listened, asked questions, struggled with concepts that seemed obvious to me. Trust? He repeated one night, rolling the word like a stone. You gave him trust. How? He was stranger. Drifter. Nothing to you. He gave me reason. Small promises kept, being where he said, doing what he promised, listening when I spoke. Trust builds slowly, Kael. It cannot be demanded. And love. Trust plus time plus choosing to see the best in someone even when they fail. Silas forgot my birthday. He apologized, made amends, never forgot again. That failure and repair made me love him more, not less. Because he tried. Kael was silent for a long moment. I have never apologized. Never needed to, no one challenged me to. Then practice. Find something to apologize for. Mean it. The next day, he apologized to his cook for years of criticism. The cook wept. Kael returned to me confused, disturbed, somehow lighter. What else? He asked. I taught him about touch. Not possession but connection. How Silas held my hand without gripping. Kissed my forehead without claiming. Made me feel cherished without owned. Kael practiced with servants, with guards, with me. Awkward, overly formal but genuine in his effort. He learned to ask. May I? Learned to accept. No thank you. But the lessons weren't only his. I learned too in ways I hadn't expected. I learned that Kael had built Thornhaven from nothing, inheriting a bankrupt, war-torn territory at 20 and transforming it through sheer force of will. I learned that his wives had been chosen by his council, political necessities he hadn't questioned until they died. I learned that he read constantly, philosophy, history, poetry, searching for something he couldn't name. I learned that he woke screaming some nights, nightmares he wouldn't describe. That he visited the graves of his dead wives monthly, leaving flowers but never prayers. That he had a collection of sketches, hidden in his study, depicting a woman he'd never met, dark-haired, defiant, running toward a river. You drew me, I realized one evening, finding the portfolio open on his desk. Before you found me, you imagined what I looked like. I imagined your spirit, he corrected, not embarrassed, not defensive. The quality that made you run. I wanted to understand it, capture it, perhaps cultivated in myself. The pregnancy advanced. I grew round, uncomfortable, often tired. Kael noticed, adjusted, shorter lessons, more rest, foods I craved appearing without request. You don't have to care for me, I said one evening, rubbing my aching back. Our agreement doesn't require kindness. Kindness is the lesson, he said, surprising us both. Caring without expectation of return. Is it not? I studied him, really studied, and saw change. Subtle, incomplete, but real. The golden eyes held less emptiness. The beautiful face showed more expression. He laughed sometimes, genuine and surprised by it. And I felt something dangerous. Not love, not yet, but possibility. The recognition that monsters might become men, if given reason and time and choice. The child kicked. I took Kael's hand, placed it on my belly, let him feel. His expression transformed. Wonder, pure and unguarded, replacing everything else. Life, he whispered. Moving. Responding. Your hand is warm. The child likes it. He kept his hand there, gentle, reverent, until the kicking stopped and sleep took us both. The weeks became a rhythm, structured but not rigid. Mornings I walked the fortress grounds, exploring the gardens, the training yards, the library that occupied an entire tower. Afternoons, Kael and I met for lessons, sometimes formal discussions, sometimes shared activities, sometimes simply sitting in companionable silence. Evenings brought dinner, conversation. The slow building of something that felt dangerously like friendship. I met his people. The beta who managed territory affairs. A sharp-eyed woman named Sarah who regarded me with suspicion but answered my questions honestly. The captain of the guard. A scarred veteran called Thorn who treated Kael with loyalty rather than fear. The healer Marin, who monitored my pregnancy with professional thoroughness and occasional warmth. They were watching me, I knew. Assessing whether I was another victim, another temporary fixture, or something else entirely. I didn't try to win them over. I simply was consistent, honest, present, and let them draw their own conclusions. Sarah was the first to thaw, cornering me in the library one afternoon. You've changed him, she said without preamble. I don't know if that's good or terrible, but it's real. Changed him how? He asks questions now. Considers alternatives. Yesterday, he reversed a judgment he'd already made because Thorn suggested another approach. She studied me with the same assessing gaze she used on balance sheets. The others tried to please him. You challenge him. He needs that. He's needed it for years. Why didn't you challenge him? Something flickered, pain quickly suppressed. I tried. Once. Early in his reign. He wasn't ready to hear it and I learned my place. She straightened, recovering her professional mask. Be careful, Aurora. Or Rowan. Whatever you're called. If you break him now, after showing him what he could be, the pieces won't fit back together. It was a warning but also an acknowledgement. I was affecting him. The question was whether the change would hold, whether it was real transformation or elaborate performance, whether I was building something lasting or setting us both up for greater pain. The dreams didn't help. Every night I relived the escape, the running, the jumping, the cold dark of the cave. But increasingly the dream changed. In the new version, Kael jumped after me, caught me in the water, held me while we both drowned, his arms iron bands, his voice whispering that we would be together forever. In death if not life. I woke from those dreams gasping, my heart racing, and it would take hours to shake the dread. Kael noticed, though I tried to hide it. He started leaving books outside my door. Poetry, philosophy, novels, things to occupy my mind in the sleepless hours. He never mentioned the nightmares. He simply provided tools to survive them. At 4 months pregnant, I felt the first flutter of movement. Quickening, the healers called it. The moment when pregnancy becomes undeniable reality. I was sitting in the garden watching Kael spar with Thorn, when the sensation struck, like bubbles, like butterfly wings, like a secret only I knew. I gasped, hand flying to my belly. Kael noticed immediately, breaking off his match to cross to me in 3 long strides. What is it? Pain. Should I fetch Marin? No. It's. I laughed, surprising myself. Movement. The child moved. Here. I took his hand, pressed it to the right spot, waited. The flutter came again, stronger now. Kael's eyes widened, his breath catching, and for a moment he looked almost boyish, wonder stripping away years of control. Hello, he whispered to my belly, and I felt the vibration of his voice through his palm. I'm learning to be someone you can know, someone your mother can tolerate. I hope I have time to become worthy of you. It was the most vulnerable I'd ever seen him, more vulnerable than his confessions about his wives, more than his nightmares, more than his halting attempts at apology. He was speaking to the future, to possibility, to a child who might judge him as harshly as I had. You have time, I said quietly. We both do. If we choose to use it. He looked up at me, and I saw the question in his eyes. The hope. The fear that this was manipulation performance, that I was playing him as skillfully as he played others. Choose, I told him, echoing my own earlier words. Be here or don't. Try or don't. But decide, Kael. Don't drift into transformation because it's expected. Commit to it because you believe in it. He nodded slowly. I choose to try. To become someone who deserves this. You. The child. The possibility you're offering. It wasn't love. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was real, and it was enough for that moment to build on. Chapter 5. The attack came at dawn. I was in the garden, 7 months pregnant and unwieldy, when the first arrows flew. Kael's guards died before they could shift. Poisoned, I realized later. Their wolves paralyzed by coated blades. Kael found me, pulled me into the fortress, sealed the doors. His face was feral. All the humanity we'd built stripped away by threat. Who? I gasped, clutching my belly. My brother. Kael. He was meant to be alpha before I challenged and won. He's been waiting 15 years for weakness. Kael's eyes were gold fire. The monster fully emerged. He knows about you. About the child. He'll use you to destroy me. Then hide me. Protect me. Be what you've learned. I am what I've learned. He caught my shoulders, not gentle, desperate. I am protector, defender, all those words you taught. But I am also killer, Aurora. Also the thing that hunts. Kael expects the new Kael, the soft Kael. He doesn't know I can be both. He released me, moved to the armory, began strapping on weapons I'd never seen him use. Stay here. Guarded. If I fall, the eastern tunnel leads to safety. Mar from your village, she's there. I arranged. You arranged? Before the attack. Always. Since finding you. He met my eyes and I saw love. Real, terrifying. Fully grown from the seeds we'd planted. I love you, Aurora. The true thing, not possession. Your choice, always your choice, but I needed you to know. Before I face what comes. He kissed me. Quick, fierce, nothing like the careful touches we'd practiced. Then he was gone, and I was alone with guards who looked as frightened as I felt. The battle lasted hours. I heard it, howls, screams, the crash of stone as something massive struck the fortress walls. I felt it in my belly, the child restless, responding to my terror. Time dilated, stretched thin by fear. The guards tried to keep me calm, offering tea, blankets, reassurances I didn't believe. I paced instead, listening to the sounds of battle filtering through stone, trying to read the tide of conflict in the rhythm of violence. Kael. Kael's brother. I knew the story, had learned it in fragments over the months. 15 years ago, Kael had been 20, Kael 22. Both sons of the previous alpha. When their father died, tradition demanded the stronger brother take leadership. Kael had expected it, had been trained for it, groomed for it, and Kael had challenged anyway. The fight had been brutal, public, final. Kael won, but not cleanly. Kael carried scars, physical and otherwise, and had spent the intervening years plotting, waiting, building alliances among those who resented Kael's rule. He tried twice before to unseat his brother, once through legal challenge, once through assassination. Both failed. This was different. This was coordinated, resourced, time to strike when Kael was distracted by domestic concerns. By me. The fortress shuddered. I gripped the table, steadying myself, and felt a sudden wetness between my legs. Not blood, please not blood, but fluid enough to soak my dress. My water had broken 2 months early, and the contraction started immediately, sharp and unmistakable. Get Marin, I gasped at the nearest guard. Now. The baby's coming. He stared at me, terrified, caught between duty and disaster. Go. I screamed and he went. The next hour was the worst of my life. The contractions came fast and hard, too fast, too hard, with no time to prepare or adjust. Marin arrived, took one look, and her face went pale. Too early, she muttered, more to herself than me. Too fast. Something's wrong. Save them, I demanded, gripping her wrist. Both of us. Whatever it takes. I'll try. But Aurora Rowan, this will hurt. More than it should. The child is positioned wrong, and I need to turn them, and I can't give you anything for the pain without risking the baby. Do it. She did. I screamed, bit through a leather strap, lost track of time and self and everything but the overwhelming, all-consuming effort of bringing life into the world while death raged outside. Then silence. Terrible, complete. The door opened. Kael entered, covered in blood not his own, carrying a sword still dripping. Behind him, bound and unconscious, a man who looked like his shadow, same features twisted by hate rather than emptiness. Alive, Kael said, answering my unasked question. For justice, not vengeance. Another lesson, you choose the punishment. He threatened you. You decide. I looked at Kael, at the blood and destruction and the choice offered. Exile, I said. Strip him of rank, resources, pack. Let him live as I lived, anonymous, working, understanding what powerlessness means. Death teaches nothing. Life properly lived can teach everything. Kael nodded. As you say. Later, when Kael was gone and the fortress cleaned of death, Kael found me in my rooms. He actually knelt before my chair. I was wrong, he said. About love. It's not learning, not practice, not choice alone. It's this risking everything for someone, and finding them worth the risk. You are worth everything, Aurora. My life, my power, my transformation. All of it, freely given. I touched his hair, the dark strands still matted with blood and sweat. And if I don't want it? If I choose to leave after the child is born to build elsewhere? Then I help you build. Protect you from distance. Love you without possession. He looked up and I saw the truth in him, the change complete. I am not the monster who bought you. I am the man you made. And I am grateful. The child kicked between us, connecting us, this impossible family built from death and choice and slow, stubborn growth. I need time, I said. To trust what I'm feeling. To know it's real, not Stockholm, not manipulation, not desperate gratitude. Time, he agreed. All you need. All I have. The aftermath of the attack reshaped everything. Kael's rebellion had failed, but it exposed vulnerabilities, political, structural, personal, that couldn't be ignored. Kael spent weeks in council, restructuring alliances, purging traitors, consolidating power. But he did it differently now. He asked questions. He listened to dissent. He chose mercy over vengeance more often than not, and when he did choose punishment, he explained why. I watched from the edges, recovering from the premature labor that had somehow miraculously stabilized. Marin couldn't explain it. The stress should have triggered delivery, but instead the contraction stopped, the fluid replenished, the pregnancy continued as if the interruption had never happened. The child is strong, she said, baffled and relieved. Stubborn. Like their mother. Like their father too, I thought but didn't say. Kael's stubbornness had kept him searching for 3 years. Mine had kept me running, then fighting, then teaching. Together, we were creating something that refused to break. The physical recovery was slower than I wanted. My body remembered the trauma, tensing at unexpected noises, flooding with adrenaline at the smell of smoke or blood. Kael noticed as he noticed everything, and adjusted his behavior accordingly. He never approached from behind. He never touched me without warning. He kept weapons out of sight when we were together, though I knew he carried them always. You're being careful with me, I observed one evening as we sat in the garden, my belly huge between us. I'm being respectful. There's a difference. He was carving something I noticed, small and wooden. You experienced violence. Your body remembers, even when your mind knows you're safe. I won't trigger those memories unnecessarily. And if I want to be triggered, to face it, process it, move past it. He set down his carving, studying me with those golden eyes that now held so much more than emptiness. Then we face it together. But on your schedule, not mine. Not anyone's. I picked up the carving. It was a wolf, small enough to fit in my palm, rendered with surprising skill. The detail in the fur, the expression, proud but not cruel, watchful but not predatory. It's beautiful, I said. It's you, he replied. The you I see. The you I'm learning from. I wanted to capture that so I don't forget. So when I backslide, when I become hard or cold or controlling, I have something to remind me what's possible. I held the wolf to my heart, feeling the smooth wood warm against my skin. You won't backslide. Not completely. The path only goes forward, Kael. Even when we stumble, we're still moving in the right direction. I hope so. He took my hand, the gesture natural now, expected. I hope I'm worthy of the faith you're placing in me. Worthy isn't the point. The point is trying. Continuing. Choosing every day to be better than you were. He smiled and it reached his eyes, transforming his face from beautiful to breathtaking. Then I choose. Today and tomorrow and every day I have. I choose you, Aurora. I choose the child. I choose the life we're building. Even when it's hard, even when I fail. Even when you look at me and see the monster I was. I see the man you're becoming, I corrected gently. And that's enough. That's more than enough. Chapter 6. The labor began on the spring equinox, when day and night balanced perfectly. I knew something was wrong immediately. The pain was wrong, too sharp, too constant. Not the rhythmic waves the midwives described. The child wasn't positioned correctly. I could feel it, somehow the body inside me fighting to emerge. Kael was frantic. He'd brought every healer in his territory, plus 2 from neighboring packs, plus a human doctor who knew nothing of wolves but everything of difficult births. Save her, he demanded over and over. Save them both or answer to me. Alpha, the eldest healer said. We may need to choose. The mother or the child. Both may be impossible. I caught Kael's hand, pulled him close. No choosing. I decide. And I choose to try. Both of us or neither. I will not live without this child. I will not abandon this child to grow up without knowing I fought for them. Aurora. Promise me, Kael. No matter what happens, you love this child. You protect them. You teach them what you learned from me. That choice matters, that kindness is strength, that monsters can become men. I promise, he whispered, voice breaking. But you will teach them yourself. You will survive. You must. The labor lasted 20 hours. I remember fragments. Kael's hand in mine, the healer's voices, the pressure and pain and desperate pushing. I remember silence, suddenly the absence of heartbeat, terror like ice. Then sound. Crying, thin and angry, the most beautiful noise I'd ever heard. Twins, the healer announced, disbelief in her voice. A boy and a girl. Small but strong. Miraculously positioned once the first emerged. Both alive, both healthy, both perfect. Twins. 2 lives where I'd feared none. 2 futures, 2 possibilities, 2 reasons to keep becoming. I held them, finally, exhausted beyond measure, euphoric beyond description. The boy had Kael's dark hair, my eyes. The girl had my features, Kael's golden gaze. A miniature of the man who'd become their father in every way that mattered. Names? Kael asked, sitting beside me, careful not to jostle. Silas, I said, touching the boy's cheek. For his father, who loved me enough to let me choose, even in death. And the girl? I looked at her, at those impossible golden eyes, at the future she represented. Hope, I said. Because that's what she is. What they both are. The hope that love can transform, that choice can heal, that even the darkest beginning can lead to light. Kael wept. Openly, without shame, the man who'd never apologized now crying over new life and second chances. The weeks after were bliss and exhaustion intertwined. Kael was ridiculous, hovering, protective, learning to change diapers with the same intensity he'd once applied to warfare. He talked to the twins constantly, telling them stories, singing off-key lullabies, promising them the world. I watched him and felt my heart settle. The love I'd questioned was real. The transformation was complete. This man, this father, this partner, this gentle giant, was not the monster who'd bought me. But the world remembered. A messenger arrived on the twins' 1-month celebration. From my father. From the pack that had sold me, mourned me, moved on. Read it, Kael said, seeing my hesitation. I did. The words blurred, then sharpened into terrible clarity. Your sister, I whispered. Lily. She's 18. Promised to Kael in my place since I died. The ceremony is next month. The room spun. My sister, gentle, artistic, completely unprepared, walking toward the death I'd escaped. The monster I'd transformed, now expected by another innocent girl. What will you do? Kael asked. I looked at him, really looked, at the man he'd become, at the family we'd built, at the future we'd earned. I'll save her, I said. As I was saved. As you were saved. The cycle ends here. Chapter 7. We planned for 2 weeks. Kael wanted to attack, storm the ceremony, destroy the alliance, claim Lily by force. I refused. That would make me what he'd been. A monster using power to take without consent. We go as guests, I insisted. We reveal I'm alive. We offer Lily choice, the same choice I demanded. If she wants the alliance, if she sees something in you that I didn't, we accept it. But she must choose. Freely. Fully informed. And if your father refuses? If he demands the alliance, proceed. Then we offer more. Territory, trade, protection. We make Lily's freedom valuable to him, not just right. Kael studied me, head tilted. You are teaching me again. I'm showing you. There's a difference. The journey to my birth pack was strange. A reversal through time and transformation. We traveled with the twins, now 2 months old, plus an honor guard large enough to impress but not threaten. Kael and I took turns holding the babies, feeding them, changing them. A domestic rhythm that felt surreal given our destination. I thought of my mother constantly. Had she known I survived? Had she suspected? The message had been addressed to Kael, formally, with no mention of me beyond the tragedy of my death. But mothers knew things. Mothers felt things. I couldn't believe she'd completely accepted my drowning. We stopped at the same village where I'd hidden 3 years ago. The same inn, even though the innkeeper didn't recognize me. Rowan was gone, replaced by Aurora Blackwood, maid of the Alpha, mother of twins. I wore fine clothes now, traveled in a carriage, commanded respect rather than suspicion. But I remembered. The fear, the hunger, the desperate hope that I could outrun my fate. I wanted to find the girl I'd been, tell her it would be okay, that the monster would become a man, that she would survive and thrive and return in power. Instead, I nursed my children in a private room, watching Kael play with Silas's tiny fingers, and let the past settle into memory. My father met us at the border, his face cycling through shock, rage, fear, calculation. You died, he said, staring at me, at the twins in my arms, at Kael standing protectively beside me. I lived. I chose. I built something better than what you sold me to. I stepped closer, let him see my strength, my certainty. Lily deserves the same choice. Let her meet Kael. Let her decide. If she wants him, I will support her, help her, ensure she has what I lacked, knowledge, power, allies. But if she refuses, you will accept it. You will find another alliance. Or you will answer to Thornhaven. Thornhaven. He looked at Kael, really looked and saw what I'd made. Not the butcher. The man. The father. The partner who'd kneel before his woman and weep over newborns. She transformed me, Kael said simply. She can transform anything. Do not test her, Gamma. You will lose. Lily met us that evening. She was everything I remembered, gentle, artistic, completely unprepared for politics or power. But she was also curious, brave in her own way. You ran, she said to me, alone in the room I'd once prepared for death. You actually ran. And lived. And built this. I did. And you can too, whatever you choose. Stay and I'll teach you everything I learned. Go and I'll help you disappear as I did. Marry him and I'll ensure you have power I never had. My support, my knowledge, my presence as reminder that you are never alone. Is he? She hesitated. Is he kind? Now. To me. Because I demanded it, taught it, refused less. But I cannot promise he would be kind to you. Only that I would help you demand it, as I did. Lily was silent for a long moment. Then, I want to meet him. Alone. Without fathers or sisters or expectations. Just two people speaking truth. I arranged it. Watched from distance as they talked for hours. Saw her laugh once, surprised. Saw him listen, really listen in the way I taught. She refused him. Not from fear, from recognition. I see what you are to her, she told me after. What she made you. But I don't want to make someone. I want to find someone already made, already whole, who meets me as equal. He's not that. Not yet. Maybe never for anyone but you. We left the next day. Lily with us, free, choosing her own path. Studying healing in Thornhaven under my guidance. My father raged, then negotiated, then accepted. The alliance dissolved but new treaties formed. Thornhaven grew stronger through choice rather than forced bond. And I felt something settle. The last thread of my old life cut cleanly. The new life chosen fully mine in every way. The return journey was celebratory. Almost giddy. Lily rode with us, her possessions packed in a single trunk, her face alight with possibility. She asked endless questions about Thornhaven, about healing, about the life she might build. She adored the twins, holding them in turns, singing to them in a voice sweet enough to make Kael smile. You've given her what you had to steal, he observed one evening as we made camp. Freedom. Choice. A future unwritten. I've given her what you gave me, I corrected. The chance to be seen. To be valued for herself, not her utility. Is that what I did? He looked surprised. I thought I took and only learned to give later. You saw me. From the beginning you saw something in me that others didn't. That I didn't see in myself. You called it fascination, obsession, but it was recognition. You saw a mirror, Kael. Someone as trapped by circumstance as you were. As desperate for transformation. He was quiet for a moment, feeding Silas a bottle with the competence he'd developed through endless practice. I saw escape, he said finally. From the cycle I'd created. The wives who feared me, the power that isolated me, the monster I'd become. You represented hope. That I could be different. That I could choose differently. And now I am different. Not perfect, never that. But different enough to be worthy of this. He gestured at the camp, the family, the future unfolding around us. Worthy of you, though I still struggle to believe it. Believing isn't required. Living is. Choosing every day to be the man you want to be. He kissed me then in the firelight with our children nearby and our future secure. It wasn't the desperate kiss before battle, or the careful kisses of early lessons. It was the kiss of partners, equals, two people who had chosen each other through fire and transformation. I love you, Aurora Blackwood, he said against my lips. Not because you're mine. Because you're you, and I'm better for knowing you. I love you, Kael Blackwood. Not because you conquered me. Because you learned to listen. Chapter 8. The war came 3 years later. Not from my father or Kael, or any enemy we'd anticipated. From the rogues Kael had hunted during his butcher years. Their children grown now, seeking vengeance for parents he'd killed in his grief madness. They came in numbers, hundreds, organized, trained. They came with weapons and fire and the certainty that Thornhaven's alpha had grown soft, domestic, weakened by love. They were half right. Kael had grown soft in the ways that mattered. He played with his children, listened to his people, apologized when wrong, chose healing over punishment whenever possible. But he'd also grown stronger, more connected, more loved, and therefore more willing to fight for what he loved. The battle lasted 3 days. I fought beside him, not as warrior, as I'd never become that, but as healer, strategist, voice that kept him human even in violence. Remember why? I told him when the rogues breached the eastern wall. Remember who you're protecting. Remember what we built. He remembered. Fought with terrible efficiency, but also with restraint, killing only when necessary, offering surrender when possible, showing the rogues that the butcher had become something worse for their purposes. A man with something to lose and therefore infinite courage. We won. Not through superior force but through superior purpose. The rogues broke against our walls, our love, our certainty that this life was worth any cost. After, when the dead were burned and the wounded tended, Kael found me in the garden where we'd first acknowledged what grew between us. I killed, he said, voice hollow. Many. Even offering mercy, I killed. You protected. You chose the least violence possible. You remained yourself even in battle. I took his hand, placed it over my heart. This is what you are now, Kael. Not the butcher. Not the monster. The man who kills to protect, who fights to preserve, who loves even in violence. Is that enough? To be a killer with good reasons. It's enough to be human. To try daily to be better than yesterday. To accept failure and continue anyway. I kissed him soft and certain. You are enough. You have always been enough, even when you couldn't see it. He held me and we watched our children play among the flowers, Silas strong and kind, teaching his sister to track. Hope fierce and golden-eyed, already showing the leadership that would one day rule Thornhaven. The aftermath of the war brought changes we hadn't anticipated. The rogue packs, defeated but not destroyed, requested parley. Not surrender but negotiation. They wanted to understand what had happened at Thornhaven, how the butcher had become something else, whether that transformation could extend to them. Kael hesitated. These were the children of his victims, the inheritors of his violence. He had no right to their forgiveness, no claim to their trust. But I encouraged him to meet with them, to listen, to offer what he'd learned rather than what he'd built. They need to see it's possible, I told him. That the cycle can break. You can show them, not tell them. The negotiations lasted months. Gradually, painfully, trust emerged. Not friendship, not alliance, but the possibility of both. The rogue packs agreed to territorial boundaries, to trade, to a council where disputes could be resolved without bloodshed. In exchange, Kael offered reparations. Not enough, never enough for the lives he'd taken, but a beginning. I watched him grow through this process. The man who'd never apologized now spent hours crafting statements of responsibility, acknowledging specific crimes, naming the dead. Didn't absolve him. Nothing could. But it was real, and it was necessary, and it created space for something other than vengeance to grow. Silas and Hope grew too, shaped by their unusual childhood. They knew their father's history, not all of it, not yet, but enough to understand that people could change, that mistakes didn't have to define you, that love was a practice rather than a feeling. Silas at 5 asked me once, why did Papa kill people? Because he was hurt, I said carefully. And he didn't know how to heal except by hurting others. Until he learned better. And you taught him? I showed him. There's a difference. He had to choose to learn. Silas considered this with the gravity that characterized him even as a child. I want to show people too. When I grow up, I want to help them choose better. Hope was different. Fiercer, more instinctive, less inclined to patience. She had Kael's intensity without his control. My stubbornness without my caution. At 5, she was already challenging her teachers, her parents, the very structure of pack hierarchy. Why does Papa lead? She demanded. Why not Mama? She's smarter. Because the pack chose him, I explained. And because I don't want to lead. I want to advise, to teach, to influence. That's power too, just different. I want to lead, she declared. And I'll do it better. Fair. No one will be scared of me. Kael overheard and laughed, lifting her onto his shoulders. Then learn, little Alpha. Learn everything. And when you're ready, challenge me. I'll be waiting. It was a joke but also a promise. Our children would choose their own paths, their own power, their own definitions of success. We would give them the tools, the support, the freedom we'd both been denied. The rest was up to them. Chapter 9. I stood on the balcony of Thornhaven, watching the celebration below. The twins' mating ceremony, both of them choosing partners on the same day. A double celebration that filled the fortress with joy and noise and enough food to feed 3 packs. Silas had chosen a gentle scholar from the Eastern Territories, a wolf who'd never held a sword but could recite poetry for hours. Hope had chosen a warrior, scarred and fierce, who'd arrived as refugee and proven himself through service. Both choices were good. Both were freely made, fully informed, celebrated rather than enforced. Kael joined me, his hair silver now, his face lined with years of laughter and worry and love. He moved slower, the old injuries finally claiming their due, but his eyes, those golden eyes, still saw me with the wonder they'd learned 20 years before. Beautiful, he said, nodding at the celebration. They are. Because they chose. Because we showed them that choice matters. We showed them more than that. He took my hand, his skin warm and familiar. We showed them that monsters can become men. That love can grow from terrible soil. That the past doesn't determine the future. Unless we let it. I leaned against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. The presence that had become home more than any fortress or territory. Do you ever regret? I asked the question I still ask decades later. The wives before me, the years as butcher, the pain we had to survive to reach this? I regret causing pain, he said as he always said. But I don't regret the path that led to you. To this. He gestured at the celebration, at our children choosing love, at the pact that had become legend for its justice and mercy. I was broken, Aurora. You didn't fix me, you showed me I could fix myself. That is the greatest gift anyone can give. Below, Silas caught my eye, smiled, raised his glass. Hope was dancing with her warrior, fierce and joyful. Everything I'd hoped she would become. Grandchildren soon, Kael predicted. Probably. More to protect. More to teach. More to love. Always. I turned to face him, this man who'd bought me with 500 gold and set me free, who'd learned to love through my stubborn lessons, who'd become the partner I never knew I needed. I love you, Kael Blackwood. The monster, the man, and everything between. I love you, Aurora Blackwood. He kissed me, gentle as always, certain as the moon. My runaway, my teacher, my heart. Below, the celebration continued. Above, stars emerged, indifferent and eternal. Between we stood, two people who'd chosen each other, who'd built something lasting from the wreckage of what they'd been, who'd proven that love is not fate or force but daily decision. I was sold to the Alpha's worst enemy. I made him fall in love with me. And together we made something worth more than vengeance or power, or the fear that had defined our beginning. We made family. We made choice. We made hope. Later, when the toasts had been made and the dancing had slowed, I found myself alone with Lily. She was middle-aged now, her hair streaked with silver, her hands skilled from decades of healing work. She'd never married, never felt the need, though she'd had lovers and friends and a life rich with meaning. You did this, she said, nodding toward the celebration. All of it. By running, by surviving, by refusing to accept what was offered. I started it, I corrected. You all finished it. Kael by changing. You by choosing your own path. The children by being better than we were. Still. She took my hand, the gesture of sisters rather than relatives by blood. You gave me the template, the possibility. I never thanked you properly for that. You're thanking me now. We stood in comfortable silence, watching Silas dance with his scholar, Hope debate politics with her warrior, Kael holding court with a group of young alphas who came to learn from his example. Do you think it lasts? Lily asked quietly. The transformation? The choice to be better. I think it has to be remade every day, every generation. That's the burden and the gift. I thought of my grandchildren to be the world they would inherit, the choices they would face. We can only show them what's possible. They have to choose it for themselves. And if they don't? If they choose cruelty or power or fear? Then we love them anyway. And we keep showing them another way. That's all we can do. Kael found us then, offering his arm, suggesting we join the final dance. I took it, feeling the familiar warmth, the steady presence that had anchored me through 2 decades of transformation. As we moved together, surrounded by family and friends and the life we'd built, I thought of that girl in the white dress. The one who jumped into darkness rather than accept a fate not of her choosing. She would be proud, I thought, of what we'd become, of what we'd proven. The music swelled. Kael spun me, carefully mindful of my aging joints, and I laughed with the pure joy of being alive, being here, being us. The monster and the runaway. The teacher and the student. The past and the future intertwined, inseparable, endless. 50 years after the jump, the memorial stood at the edge of Silver Rush, where the river bent toward the sea. A simple stone carved with 2 names. Silas, the father who never met his children, and Aurora, the mother who became legend. I place flowers there every year on the anniversary of my escape. Not for myself, I was very much alive, ancient and creaky and still arguing with Kael about pack policy, but for the girl I'd been. The one who'd had the courage to jump. This year Hope joined me. She was alpha now, had been for a decade. Leading with the fierce compassion that characterized her reign. Her own children were grown, scattered across territories she'd helped unite, building the better world she'd envisioned as a child. Grandmother, she said, using the formal title though we'd long since dropped such pretenses in private. The council wants to declare this day a holiday. The day of choice. They want to make it official. I laughed, the sound raspy with age. A holiday named after my running away? How appropriate. Not running away. Running toward. That's what you taught us. That there's always another option. Another path. Another way to be. I looked at the stone, at the river beyond, at the life that had flowed from one desperate decision. Tell them yes. But tell them also choice isn't easy. It isn't free. Costs sometimes everything. The holiday should remember that too. It will. She helped me stand, steadying my fragile bones. Papa's waiting at the carriage. He says you promised to rest this afternoon. I promised no such thing. You promised him. That might be different. It was different. It had always been different with Kael. Even now, with both of us diminished by time, the connection held. We bickered, we compromised, we chose each other daily, and that choice had become as natural as breathing. At the carriage he waited, more silver than dark now. His golden eyes faded but still warm. He helped me in, arranged blankets around my legs, kissed my forehead with the same reverence he'd learned 50 years ago. Happy escape day, he said, smiling. Happy transformation day. I corrected. We both escaped. We both transformed. We both chose. He took my hand, holding it as the carriage began to move. That's what matters. That's what lasts. The river disappeared behind us, but its song remained, flowing through memory into legend. Through legend into the future we wouldn't see but had helped shape. Choose, it said. Always choose. And we had. The end. Story family, we made it. From runaway bride to legendary partnership, Aurora and Kael's journey is complete. If you loved this story, if you cried, cheered, believed in transformation, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. I have so many more stories coming. Rejected mates who become unstoppable, monsters who learn to love, women who refuse to be victims. Comment below. What was your favorite moment? The jump? The dinner lessons? The twins' birth? I read every word, and you beautiful people make this channel possible. Until next story. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and always choose love. Love you all.